Mugsy found it at the bottom of a mineshaft, not in a chest, just sitting on the ground.
A single block, dark gray with a faint metallic sheen that didn't catch the torchlight the way normal stone did.
He picked it up and brought it back without saying anything, which was how Mugsy handled most thieves.
NGS, he placed it on the crafting table. Spoony identified it in 30 seconds. An eternal block.
Indestructible. No tool, no explosion, nothing could break it once placed. It would exist in the FA server forever, or as close to forever as the server would run. And it could only be placed once.
Move it after placement and it would shatter instantly. One location. Permanent. Spike said, "We should think carefully about this." Spoony said, "I already have." He raised the clipboard.
The entrance to the base needed reinforcing one indestructible block at the threshold, and nothing could ever breach it. The base would be protected permanently.
Spike said, "What if we need to expand the entrance?" Spoony said, "We won't." Spike said, "We said that about the storage room." Silence. Stick said, "Where would you put it?" Spike.
Spike thought for a moment. He said, "The bridge. The narrow bridge over the eastern ravine. The one they crossed every time they left the base. It was the single point of failure in the whole server.
One block at the center of the bridge, indestructible, and the path would hold forever." Spoony said, "But if we ever want to reroute," Spike said, "we won't need to reroute a bridge."
Spoony said, "We said that about the storage room." More silence. This time Spike didn't argue. Back, Mugsy was looking at the block on the crafting table, not at the squad, just at the block.
Stick said, "Mugsy, where would you put it?" Mugsy looked up. He looked at the base. At the labeled chests, the reinforced walls, 3 sessions of careful organization.
Then at the bridge, barely visible from the hill. Then back at the block. He said, "Here," Stick said. "Where is here?" Mugsy said, "The hill, the center of the hill. The base is built around the hill."
The hill is what everything depends on. You put the indestructible thing at the thing everything else depends on. Nobody said anything for a moment. Spoony was running the calculations.
His grin had shifted, the specific shift of someone whose plan has just been interrupted by something better. Spike said, "That's not wrong," Mugsy said. "I know." The debate continued.
Spoony came back to the entrance, not because the bridge argument had failed, but because the entrance was the most immediate threat.
Spike stayed on the bridge not because the hill argument was wrong, but because bridges failed before hills. Nobody moved to Mugsy's position, though nobody argued against it either.
They went in circles for a long time. The block sat on the crafting table waiting. Eventually, Stick picked it up. He walked to the hill.
He found the exact center, not the peak, the center, the geometric middle of the structure everything was built on. He placed the block there.
It settled into the terrain with a sound that was slightly different from a normal block. Placement quieter, more final. The block was placed. The hill had an indestructible center now.
Spoony looked at it, at his clipboard, at the entrance he'd planned to reinforce. He said, "The entrance is still vulnerable," Spike said. "Yes, but the thing it's built on isn't."
Spoony said, "That's a philosophical distinction." Spike said, "Most of the important ones are." Mugsy said nothing. He went back to his corner. The block was exactly where he'd suggested.
He didn't say anything about it. Lumi was at the base. When Stick got back to the hill, she sat beside him.
He looked at the block, barely visible now, flush with the terrain. Unremarkable, except for the faux anti-sheen that distinguished it from regular stone. "A block," Stick said. "One placement? Permanent? We put it in the center of the hill. Can I tell you something?" Stick looked at her.
There's a concept in psychology called the legacy effect, the tendency to place disproportionate value on things that will outlast us. When people know something will be permanent, they become more careful about it, not because the OBG chord is more valuable, but because permanence changes the relationship between the person and the thing.
You don't own something permanent the same way you own something replaceable. It owns a piece of you instead. Stick thought about the debate.
About Spoony's entrance and Spike's bridge and Mugsy's hill. Everyone wanted it. Somewhere different, he said. Everyone wanted different things to last, Lumi said.
That's not the same as disagreeing about the block. Spoony wanted safety to last. Spike wanted access to last. Mugsy wanted foundation to last. 3 different values. One block.
Stick thought about that. About the 3 answers and what they said about the people who gave them. "What does mine say?" he said. "I put it in the hill."
You put it where Mugsy said. Lumi said. Her glow was warm. What does that say? Stick looked at the hill. At the faint sheen of the indestructible block at its center.
At Mugsy's corner, where Mugsy was standing with his arms crossed, looking at the valley, "That I trust Mugsy's judgment about foundations," he said. Lumi's glow pulsed once warmest. "That's not nothing," she said. "What would you make permanent?"